Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching.
We're watching. You're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy. Fanboy.
Fanboy.
Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
You can call her the brilliant blonde behind the Bondurant Method, but the one thing you can never call her is a backseat driver. Pat Bondurant, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Listen, I can't complain. I have a Dodge Challenger myself, although it's not an SRT. But hey, you know, I'm stuck on the 405 freeway in California, so where am I going to open it up anyway?
My car, my senior year in high school, was a Barracuda. So I've been a Mopar girl for a long, long time.
Well, for people that don't know, your husband, Bob Bondurant, which had to have been a hellish name to sit there and either go by Robert Bondurant or Bobby Bondurant and even Bob Bondurant, you know, just filling out paperwork, people just going, wow, that's a mouthful. You know, is a legendary driver, one of the few Americans early on to be a part of Formula One. I mean, he's coached Clint Eastwood, Christian Bale, Paul Newman, and so many, Gene Hackman, I'm assuming for the French correction.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise, Days of Thunder, everything else.
Yep.
You know, there's always that mentality, because if we go back that far, you know, late 50s, you know, into the 50s and 60s, there was always the joke that women can't drive. And here you are with this world-class driver that, like, did you ever get challenged when you got married to Bob?
I did.
Like, he had already taught you how to drive his style, because since you already mentioned you had a Barracuda your senior year of high school, so we already know you knew how to sit behind the wheel of a muscle car.
So you put this factor together. I'm born in the middle of 5 brothers. So there you already start off on that. I mean, you're already in the zone. I've always had very barely legal street cars. And I'm not kidding. I went through 7 Corvettes. I've had Porsches. I've had the Barracuda. I've had Jaguars. I mean, so when I met Bob, he put me through the school, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need to go through your school. And like everybody who goes through the Bob Bondurant Racing School, the first thing you do after your noon lunch break is you put your license on the table and you go, I never earned this driver's license. It's that incredible. And it's all based on his methodology of the Bondurant method. And it is pure race car driver telling you the physics of what a car will and won't do. And that car is only as smart as its operator.
You know, there has to be moments, not just for yourself, but for Bob as well, where you'll watch a movie, like, let's say Rush, because I don't presume you guys were involved in that one.
Oh, well, we were at the red carpet, so of course we were there.
So when you watch something like Rush, and the story is between the two main drivers, but you see the driving and it doesn't necessarily fit the racetrack, how much does that pull either of you out of the movie to just look at each other and go, that doesn't really work?
Terrible. It's painful. It's so painful, because Bob was the technical advisor for the movie Grand Prix. So he raced in Formula One during the filming. He was in the movie and he trained all the drivers. So the smartest thing Frankenheimer did was get Bob to look at exactly what you're talking about, which is, does the sound and the gear shifting match up to the RPMs to where the guy is on the track, and should he be downshifting when he's making a turn? So boy, when we go to movies, we're like, ay. Yeah, it's a little frustrating, but you know what? The movies they put out, you're so busy paying attention to the storyline, but when you are us, it does kind of, you do get a little, you critique it, you do.
Well, you guys are reinvigorating the Bondurant method. You know, Bob is, I think, 88 or 89 years old at this point.
He's 88, just turned 88.
Well, happy birthday to Bob. I just
he
turned
says
43.
88 young.
Oh, no. He's lived more lives than I will ever live, and I'm half his age.
Yep.
So, you know, we're going to sit there and like, and I know I would not have earned my driver's license. I probably would have been the first one before we even started the class to put the license down and go.
You can't even imagine. You can't even imagine.
You said you didn't need the course, and a lot of other people hadn't, but who was someone that you can mention their name, the most cantankerous and unyielding and then broken and humbled by the Bondurant method that you've witnessed?
Well, I can't tell you the celebrity names, but boy, we sure have taken them down a few notch. What we do is we take your core, we pull you apart, basically embarrass you, then we build you back together as a driver. And, you know, in the beginning, you're a little bit frustrated, like, why is he picking on me? But in the end, you're now a whole driver, you know, taught by the master himself. So, you know, we have a guy that's been through the school 57 times. And you're like, did you not learn what we taught you? But that wasn't the point. The point is he's an active, very ferocious vintage race car driver. So at the Bondurant school, we still taught the double clutch, and you have to know that in vintage car racing. So the guy did really, really good. But you know, most people, and you would just crack up. I don't care if you're coming through the school and you're 18 or if you're 65, or we've even had 82-year-olds. You walk in immediately humbled because you know you're in the presence of a world champion, 10-time Hall of Famer. You know that you're at the #1 racing school in the world, and you become very humbled and you listen. And I love when parents tell us that their kids come home and they're saying, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And a certain amount of confidence is built into this course. We teach you to do crazy things that you would never do unless you had somebody sitting next to you going, it's okay, put your foot in the throttle, and here's what we're going to do. It's very empowering.
Well, it sounds like it. And, you know, I can only imagine certain people that would either come in and even possibly challenge the instructors and yourself.
Oh, we had those guys.
Of course. You know, like the martial arts schools where the guys come in and, you know, throw down. And I'm sure you've had those as well. Yeah. And then, you know, they eat your dust and go from there. But before we get into the method and the revamp of the method, I do have to ask, what is your most favorite car that you've ever owned that you wish you still had?
Oh, I don't even hesitate. When I designed the Tomahawk cruise missile facility. That's one of my first buildings I designed. And I got a big raise. And I went out and bought a 66 Jaguar XKE. And there weren't very many left-hand drive American XKEs built that year. And I tell you what, that put me in that car and us together. It was amazing. I'll never forget getting pulled over by a state trooper. And he said, lady, you were doing 120 miles an hour. Well, the car was so low, all I saw was his belt buckle. And I'm sitting there rolling my eyes and thinking, oh man, that's how fast I went, or is that how slow I went? But that car, man, I got to tell you, that was the igniter in me and saying, I think I get what all the excitement's about. Yeah. And I sold it to a guy in England who was collecting as many of the American drive cars that he could find. So I really regret giving that car up.
Well, we all have that one. You know, I did something similar to that with my Challenger, and I only have a V6. And I took a turn. It was on a curve, and the police officer pulled me over, and he looks at me and he's looking at the Challenger. He's like, how fast do you think you were going? I said, well, the speed limit said 30, so I don't know, about 35. And he showed me the gun, and I took a right turn at 65, and I didn't feel it at all. Yeah. And the dummy that I am was like, wow, I didn't even feel the road. I can't, you know, so I'm more excited that I didn't even feel a 65 right-hand turn. And it's like, yeah, that happens with these big SRTs. And I was like, no, this is a 6-cylinder. Yeah, and he hesitated in giving me the ticket though, because it was a 6-cylinder.
Well, those cars they're built. And I tell you what, that was probably the best mule we ever had at Bondurant. When we had the Bondurant, the SRTs, the Hellcats and the Demons and all that. The car's built well. You know, it's, to me, I think that was such a smart move. It was really painful when we really were focusing on the Vipers, and then they stopped the manufacturing of those. That was a car that don't wear light colored pants when you come to the school when you're in that car.
And to be fair, it was Carroll Shelby's last car that he ever designed.
It was. I owned a Viper for 7 years, way before I met Bob. So when he put me through the school, back to your question, I got a really high score with him. And he did point out that women always listen better than men. That's why we always spank the men on the obstacle course and the autocross, because we're so afraid of not doing it right that we listen. But to your point earlier, the guy that gets out there and says, oh, I've done this before. Well, they're throwing cones all over the place and, you know, falling out of the track and on, and they never get the good score. So listening will save your life. It will.
Well, that I agree with you on that, and it's always funny that, you know, women have better credit score, not credit scores, insurance rates than men do when it comes to driving as well. But, you know, again, before we get fully into the new method and everything else, what was the most ridiculous comment you heard as well? You know, you don't have to name names, but like, you know, you always hear something ridiculous, and you know, those challenges and those guys, I know everything, and then throwing the cones and whatever else, and then the most humbling response to the biggest ego.
I'm going to tell you the truth. It was the insurance companies. They would dock people if you went to the Bondurant school. So when I was there, I called up several of the insurance companies and I said, I need a moment for you to see what we do here at Bondurant. So I invited one of the biggest insurance companies in the country. And I said, you can bring as many people locally as you'd like. And they brought 300 people. Mainly, my main focus was to show them to bring parents and their teenagers. We put them all through a one-day course. They were so blown away. They had demonized us all these years saying, oh no, you don't get insurance because you've been to Bondurant school and you're going to go out there and be a race car driver on the streets. And it's the polar opposite. We teach you how to respect the car, respect the law, respect, you know, being the driver. The car belongs on the track if you're going to go fast, you know. And they were so blown away that that was the curriculum. So now if you went to the Bondurant school, you get 25% off of your insurance. So if that's not a humbling experience, I don't know what is.
Well, I know what I'm doing on my next trip to Arizona, that I'm going to get a 25% discount.
Not so fast, because we sold the Bondurant assets. We did not sell the Bondurant name, but we are in serious conversations with people right now on where we're going to put the new Bondurant home. So right now there is no Bondurant in operation, but that's moving quickly. And by January, you'll be hearing exactly who, what, when, and where that school is. So save your anxiety a little bit. We'll book you as soon as we get the new location. We're pretty excited about it. We've got 3 major options, and I mean, I'm blessed to be able to go to Bob and say, hey, which way do you want to go? Because he's still very, very involved in those decisions. And I mean, we've even got F1 tracks in Europe going, we want a Bondurant school here. And we're like, oh my God, this is Bondurant 2.0. So yeah, there's no Bondurant school in operation right this minute. Well, but it's just a temporary pause.
Which is the perfect tie-in to all of this. Do you plan to stay in Arizona? Are you looking to move out of Arizona and to some other lower 48 state? Like what are we hoping for?
Well, I have about 7 requests for a Bondurant license, and they're on both coasts, Mid-America, Texas, Florida, and now a big group spent 4 hours with them on Saturday, and they're like, hold on, you need to stay in Arizona, and here's where we'll back you up. So I wasn't looking to stay in Arizona, although I don't know why. It didn't make any sense. I think I'm like the girl at prom, and you've got all these boyfriends wanting to ask you to the prom, and you're like trying to pick, and then you turn around and you go, hey, my best friend is right here, and that's who I really want to go to prom with. And in my case, that's kind of the state of Arizona. So it just might be, you never know. We just might end up here. But I will tell you this, if we end up here, it will be the most insane track in this state. And there will be no more flat dirt tracks. Girlfriend here is going after elevation.
So we're getting a bank track, bank track.
We're going to get some elevation. If I go Arizona, it's going to be the OMG track. Yep.
The Bondurant OMG
here,
track.
Ladies and gentlemen.
The Bondurant OMG track. Is that the official name, or is that the working title?
It's pretty exciting. I have to tell you, for them to captivate me for 4 hours, and they did a lot of drawings and stuff. Wow. I'm like, okay, hold on. Maybe I'm not that close to the winner as I thought.
Well, now let's get into the method. You're revamping the business. You've kept the name, which is the smartest thing you can do because it is yours and your husband's surname. And now you're revamping the method. How does the original ideology from, let's say, the last 10 years go and into the new methodology that you're developing?
Well, that's a multifaceted question that you have. You know, it'll come out soon that what happened was my own son attempted and failed at a hostile takeover. That's why we ended up in the position that we were in. We only sold the Bondurant assets. We never sold our name, contrary to all these crazy articles going out there. We never sold our name. We never lost our name. We were challenged in court, and the judge said, Bondurants, they have their name. It's their intellectual property. Now you need to just shut up and go change your own name. Just, you know, change yourself to a different name. So that's how all that went down. So we've never lost our verve for who we are and what we are. We've never, ever stepped from, oh, wow, this sucked, what just happened to us and what we just went through. We're actually looking at it as the opportunity to be Bondurant 2.0. That would mean to us new track the way we want it. The classrooms, you know, I designed the building for, I don't know if the people on our old facility are going to use my drawings or not, but with the local architect, fantastic building. But now with these kind of supporters behind me, I think this building is going to be pretty awesome. In my plans is to do a boutique hotel, and each room is designated to Bob's favorite race car legends. So it'll be a Pat Bondurant style hotel. So it's a lot of exciting stuff there. But the methodology, which we have copyrighted, so you know, we're happy that people are learning from the Bondurant method, but in reality, Bob said nothing has changed in the driving methodology that he created back in 1968. Everything you've learned about driving would have applied in the Model T and the Model A as it does today. So everything he's taught you about, you know, the track that he designed, it's every nuance you would have on a racetrack. Negative camper, positive camper, you know, I mean, not long enough of a straightaway, but we'll be changing that too. But, you know, his method isn't going to change. There's going to be some nuances probably applied for the electric car. So we know that that torque is insane. We know that we really have to just we have to play around. We need to have a couple of Teslas or whatever car we get. We actually need to do some real serious combing through it on what are the dynamics of that car? How will it handle under certain speeds? We all know the torque just launches you off of a red light. You know, like that's insanity right there. And you go through a lot of tires if you don't know what you're doing. But, you know, really and truly, the only thing that's really going to change is just kind of learning the nuances of the electric vehicles.
I like that because I was also going to ask, since Motor Trend just did an article comparing the Acura Integra Type R from the early 90s with the Civic Type R. The only 600 of them are being released in the United States this coming year. You know, was that going to be something that was also incorporated? Because I didn't realize if there was going to be, you know, the small turbo cars like that incorporated into this, or it was strictly going to be traditional muscle cars, you know, because you were working with Dodge so much, and now the electric car on top of it.
I don't know what manufacturer we'll end up going with the new school. I won't say it will or won't be who we've already been with in the past. You know, we've already done the Ford, we've done the Corvettes, and we've done, you know, the Vipers and the Rams. But Bob started the school with the Datsun 240Zs. That's what he trained Paul Newman and Robert Wagner in, was the little 240Zs. By the way, he was also the first Porsche school. So while Bob had the 240Zs and the 2000Ss, he also had Porsche 911 and 918s. A lot of people don't know the history of that school. Was he started off with, I mean, he could see so far ahead And of course, the Asian market loves Bob. It's funny how many people are in Beijing and they will videotape Bob on television in the airports or restaurants. And of course, it's translated, but it's him talking about the racing school. So I finally asked good friends of ours over there, and we said, why is Bob being covered so much? And they go, oh, Asia has tremendous respect because he brought the 240Z, an Asian car, into America when nobody thought it was cool. Mr. K said that when he would bring the 240Zs on flatbed trains, that, you know, obviously veterans were shooting bullets at the cars. And here Bob Bondurant, world champion, 10-time Hall of Famer, Le Mans winner, starts his school with 240Zs. So we have a wonderful relationship with that part of the car culture in Asia. And when the Acuras and all these big cats come up and they look at the smaller car, you know, Bob, he'll always say, yeah, don't ever discount what the power and the stability of those cars are. You know, he knew that giving the 240Z a chance was going to live forever. And look, it did. I mean, that Asian market it stayed true. It stayed solid. And, you know, I'm not going to say that we haven't gotten a call from over there to have a Bondurant school.
Hey, it doesn't sound bad, you know,
yeah.
Although I wasn't a big fan of the new redesign of the Nissan 370.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, it is in line with that Datsun 240.
Yeah, you know, we were a gnat's hair from having to choose between the Viper and going back with Nissan, making full circle. It was our 50th anniversary. It made perfect sense for us to go back, you know, which was Datsun, which became Nissan. And, you know, Bob was favoring the Nissan and I was a Mopar girl and I wanted the Vipers and, you know, I won. So it was, I don't regret it. I do feel bad in a way that, that we really didn't make full circle the way that was one thing Bob he really wanted us to do that. We still have a great relationship with Mr. Katayama's family, and hopefully Nissan understands that we just had to do what we did. So,
well, you know, with the new school coming, and maybe, we don't know yet. Only time will tell, right?
Oh, it's coming.
Well, we don't know on our side. You guys
Yeah.
just can't tell us till the press release comes out.
I love that old saying, dim tables, they do change.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you guys are still having fun. You know, with teaching people the Bondurant method. Has someone brought in, say, an 88 Honda Civic, you know, where it was like an 80 horsepower car, and go, can you teach me how to drive your style in an average car that basically needs to be pushed up a hill?
So here's what we do. So at the school, it's always been Bob's policy, you're going to learn in our cars because we have the mechanics. If you go off the track, if you blow a clutch, whatever you're going to do to our cars. But after class is over, then you're allowed to bring your car onto the track. And now that you've learned how to drive, Bob, it was never uncommon for him to sit right side of you in your, it could have been a Datsun, you know, 1980 Clucker, you know, it was all kinds of cars. I mean, it was everything you can imagine that people were so proud of. That the funny story is our little landscaper pulled up one day with a trailer behind him, and Bob has been in every car on earth. And he sees a riding lawnmower on the back of his trailer. And he goes, Jose, how fast will that thing go? And I go, no, Bob, no, you're not taking that on the track. But we entertain the Peterbilt truck drivers. And so their top salesman every year would get to come to Bondurant as you've made it to the top. You're going to Bondurant. Well, Bob's out there on the track in an 18-wheeler with the president of Peterbilt. And I'm having to black flag him, get in here now. And finally, after he did a couple of laps, he came in and he yells, and the president goes, Bob, I think this lady down here is really upset with you. And he goes, sweetheart, what's wrong? And I go, you aren't wearing any helmets. They're out there in an 18-wheeler hauling buns on this training track. you have no idea what this man's capable of. It's unbelievable.
So it was basically a scene from Maximum Overdrive, that big 18-wheeler with the Green Goblin's head on the front of it.
Yep, yep, yep. That would be Bob Bondurant driving that car. He's done stunt driving. A lot of people don't know he did a lot of the stunt driving in Bullet. You know, and Robert Nagel,
which we just celebrated the anniversary of the film for the 60th anniversary.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. You know, I looked for the credits on there and I said, yeah, they didn't give you any credit on there, Bob. And he goes, well, the guy that they hired to do the stunt driving hired me to do it. He goes, all those high lifts coming off. He said, if you look really close, a lot of those shots are me in there. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go get that and go look at it, you know. But speaking of stunt drivers, we trained Robert Nagel. I mean, that guy did all the stunt driving for all the Batman movies, Fast and the Furious. He's a great friend. You know, he's a fantastic graduate of the Bondurant School. He loves Bob, and you learn a lot. I don't care what your level is, whether you're just a car enthusiast, a race car driver. We trained over 90% of the NASCAR drivers. Like little Chase Elliott is out there right now winning at NASCAR. And guess who came to the Bondurant School when he was 14 years old? With Bob Bondurant in the right-hand seat, teaching him everything he needed to know. So we got great stories with all the people that have come through our school.
Wow. All right. I do have to ask this, you know, because it's my own thing. Stock car racing is no longer stock car racing. I don't think it has been for 40 years. How much does that drive anybody nuts that either it was part of the original stock car racing scene or, you know, have fond memories of watching stock car racing?
It's funny you bring that up. Bob got entered into the Stock Car Hall of Fame. It's because he was out there racing around with, you know, all the big racers, and he was training them. And then he was out on the track racing against them. He didn't have a very good car, but he, you know, Bill Elliott, Chase Elliott's father. I mean, Bob was out there with, you know, all the big cats back in those days. And, you know, he just says it got so sanitized. And I think if you could hear a race car driver try to describe what their frustration is and not getting to see the old stock cars out there, it just got so safe, so sanitized, so, you know, so all the things that kind of like take out the when men were men. I think that's probably the best way to put it. You know, I mean, Bob, when we go to F1 races and we sit there and talk to all the drivers and everything, and they know exactly who he is so well known in Europe. You know, they'll go, well, this was the cutest one from Sebastian Vettel. He says, Mr. Bondurant, when you race Formula One cars, do they have gas pumps? And Bob's like, yeah, son, they had gas pumps. But he goes, but we didn't have all these widgets and being able to talk to the team, you know, director back at pit lane. He said, we were on our own. So it's become very sanitized. It's safe. But, you know, when you're in racing and you commit, Bob has this one quote. He said, if you're afraid as a race car driver before getting into your car, you have no business on that track. Absolutely none. You know, this is a guy who broke the Nürburgring lap record that lasted 15 years. And he did it in a Cobra Daytona coupe. And the guy that beat him was in a Porsche prototype. So that wasn't exactly oranges to oranges. But back to the stock car, Bob just wishes that we would just start up another race series, that it is the good old boys out there in the stock cars. Why, are you a stock car fan?
No, I just realized it was like, it's called stock car racing and there's zero stock cars out there. And I'm
Right.
like, I think they need to change their name at that point.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, the vintage business is getting so huge with the baby boomers are finally retiring and they're getting enough money to go back and get that car dad never bought them in high school. And they're out there driving these Javelins and, you know, these Boss Mustangs. And I mean, the vintage world is really picking up. So I'm pretty darn sure we're going to have a very specialized class just in vintage.
That would definitely be fun.
Yeah, including stock cars. Like we do have guys that would bring out their old stock cars and we let them have the track and give them a few instructors and help them get it dialed in. So.
All right. Well, Bondurant Method 2.0 is what you've hypothetically called it. And now the supposed Arizona, if it goes through, Bondurant OMG track comes along. All right. Take me through the course itself. Is it like 2 weekend courses? Like say you stay in Arizona and I'm going to throw out Prescott, for example. Like let's say you guys move it to Prescott. This is all hypothetical. Please don't anybody think I have any insider information.
Okay.
I do not. Pat hasn't told me anything. And so let's say it's in Prescott because, you know, the weather's nicer in Prescott than it is in Phoenix. And then all of a sudden it's like, is it like a 1 weekend written course of like trying to figure out the science behind it, and then the second week would be getting behind the wheel and going for it? Or like how does the method
throw you in that car day one? You're on a 10-acre asphalt pad where we teach you how to get the car up to 45, 55 miles an hour. Then we tell you when to slam on the brakes so you know what the ABS braking is supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to sound like, and don't let up. We've had more people come in and crash because it started vibrating the car and they let up off of the ABS while the ABS is trying to do its job. And people let up off and then they're in a horrific accident. Then we get them at the school going, I was in a bad accident. I didn't understand my braking. So we start off with all the fundamentals, no matter who you are. It's all about fundamentals. It's the skid car, it's the slalom, it's, ABS braking. So that's your first day, period, end of subject. Day two is a little bit more of that. And then we take you out on the track in a lead and follow situation where you're never on that track by yourself, but you come in and you go over the turns and the straightaway and, why you went off the track or, why you were losing the rear end of your car. Third day, you're on the track by yourself. And that's your final day on the track in the physical cars. Day 4 with us was the Formula Mazda day, where you got in an open wheel, similar to a Formula car. And then that was the day where all of it pulled together. You could not be put in one of the open wheel cars had you not had 3 days in front of that. So day 4, you're out there by yourself and you are having the absolute time of your life. So at that point, you've learned everything we need you to learn. If you come back, then we have advanced courses where you don't have to go through the first 3 days. You're literally out there on a track with an instructor who is chasing you like Almighty God, to see if you are doing everything you learned, and then you just keep growing. And like when the NASCAR drivers, when they would come back, it was to get dialed back in because they do a lot of ovals, but they do have to do, I think, about 3 road races a year. Well, when you're going round and round and all you do is turn left, and now you got to get on a road course, you have to come back and get dialed back in. And that's just the nature of the beast. It's like the guy I told you about in the beginning who's been through the school 57 times. It wasn't because he didn't get it. It was because he needed to stay dialed in. And, it builds your confidence and you go back out there. And unfortunately, on a lot of situations, you're on the track against a guy who's never been to Bondurant, who doesn't really understand the physics and the dynamics and the tire patches on your car and when to brake and going into a turn and when to let the gas do the braking for you. So once you've been through the 4 days, then you're ready to get on that track by yourself in advanced classes.
And hopefully by the 4th day, you've learned how to drive stick by then.
Some people don't. Some people just don't get it. And that's why we had the option of having, the Hellcats had a fantastic system in their transmission, just in the automatic. You could literally hear it shifting. So that kind of gave you a little bit of, woo, I'm so cool. But, the more and more automotive makers are doing away with the dang shifting. And it's like, wait a minute, that was the whole fun of this is, being in control of the car. And like I said, it's only as smart as its operator. So,
Well, Pat, I mean, you're more the business end of it. You're part of the design of it. I assume architectural degree, engineering degree background?
You know, I started off at NASA on the first space shuttle. So I learned about things that go fast. Went from that, went into architecture, designed a few buildings. I designed the world's first 2-story fitness center, won national awards on that. And then I just hopped into, okay, now what do I want to do? So, at heart, I'm one of these people who never saw a closed door. And so when I met Bob, I had already, started and co-owned a TV station. So, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I like to tell people I have a very colorful life. So when I met Bob, the operations of the school, he's a race car driver, and he really wasn't, in all these years, he really didn't care about how the accounting works, or, what we have to do. You know what his famous line for marketing meetings were for the sales team? I just want butts in seats. That was your direction, but I've done a lot in my life. But when I met Bob, I had to back off of a couple of things that I was doing, because I said, when I said I do, that means I do support you and what you're doing. And, the school, it's always had characters that have always wanted to try to steal the school or steal the name. It amazes me how, because he's such a kind, sweet, vulnerable man, fabulous race car driver. And, that's his hobby. But yet the business behind it, all the gears that had to turn, you're hoping and praying that your staff is loyal and they're up front with you. And when they say they respect you, they mean it. They don't go behind your back. And that happened to us. Our son bribed all of the top management and they did a walkout. And we had it was very orchestrated. And it was the day before our investors flew in. And then our lawyers sent the investors out. So it's just what happened to Bondurant the last 2 years is a story all of its own. Like, you can't make this stuff up. It's so evil. But coming out of that, we were calling it Bondurant 2.0. That's just me and Bob talking, And
it's unfortunate that it's your own flesh and blood that's trying to do that to you, especially your own son, your surname, your everything that's a part of your existence. Like, the legacy would have been his anyway. It didn't.
But we were giving him to school. Yeah, Bob adopted him at 31. Jason was an abused kid where the state of Tennessee took away the parental rights. And when Bob and I got married, he said, well, what's his real last name? And I said, he doesn't have a last name. The state took away his father's name and literally issued him a birth certificate with an alias. And Bob Bondurant, the man that he is, said, well, if I'm going to marry his mother, I want to give him my last name. So here you've got one of the most powerful names in the world. And you go in and you take your parents down for greed. It is incomprehensible. It really, really is. But it is what it is. And, it's been going on since biblical times. I mean, how many times have you heard the story of, the family taking down the family? So it's unfortunate. It really set Bob into a really compromised situation with his brain and not being able to deal with the stress of it. When you would talk about what happened, I mean, this was his life. And when it was taken away from him, including lawyers being very involved in our son doing this, it's not been pretty. And every time he thinks about it, he literally, the way his body could handle it was he would black out. So people are like, oh, he had a stroke or he died or, no. Bob's very alive and he's very active. He's very articulate, and he is not going to let this school, with the brand that he built to the level he built, #1 in the world, and people trying to steal the name. And oh my gosh, it's just, be careful who you trust. Salt and sugar look the same.
That's for sure. And I'm assuming when the new school opens up, wherever it may be, you're going to be sitting shotgun as he takes the first lap.
He wants to get in a race car so bad. Oh, he's just dying for me to bring the Daytona Coupe or the GT40 over. But that's just not going to work out. I mean, COVID, Bob snapped his hip in half and he had to put rods in. So during COVID, physical therapy didn't show up because they weren't allowed into the assisted living. And he went kind of into atrophy. So he's mobilized by a wheelchair, but he still wears his red racing shoes every day. So he looks like Fred Flintstone going down the halls. And they say, trust me, Bob Bondurant holds court every morning at breakfast because people can't wait to run in that breakfast to hear another race story. Like, I can't wait till the movie about his life comes out. I can't wait.
Well, that's something we would cover and that we would at least be a part of the press day for. So I'm looking forward to that,
Thanks.
especially after seeing, Ford versus Ferrari, and you guys were a part of that. You were a part of Days of Thunder and so many other films that, Bullet itself, again, celebrating 60th anniversary this year. We talked to Miss Bissett about her role in the film for the TCM Classic Film Festival. So it's all come full circle. My dad had that Bullet Mustang, which was hilarious because I didn't find out till about 3 weeks ago. My dad had passed away, and before I got the Challenger, he didn't want me to have it. And then one of his friends was like, oh yeah, I remember back in 60, I think 66, your dad pulled up in the Bullet Mustang. And I was like, really? So
Wow.
He had the Bullet Mustang, but I couldn't get a V6 Challenger.
My
He
dad?
didn't want me to get a V6 Challenger. And and you can't argue with a dead man. So
Yeah, but it ain't too late to get what you want. I just told you that earlier. Men are like, I'm getting the car my dad wouldn't let me have.
oh, I have it. Don't worry. But it was one of those things, like he was like, you shouldn't get it. You should get something more practical. I'm like, wait a minute, you had the Bullet Mustang, and now I find out after you passed that you're telling me about practicality when you didn't have that.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's hilarious. My daughter was 16, and I had given her, both kids, money to go invest in the stock market. And they made a lot of money. I just let them play with it. Well, she made a lot. And she said, Mom, I want a Viper. And I'm like, you're 16. So I go, you're not setting foot in that car until you go to a driving school. She goes, oh, I found one. So I did not know all that time that where I sent her was the Bondurant School. I didn't know. I meet Bob when I'm auctioning off the Viper 7 years later. And she goes, Mom, that's the instructor where I went to school where I learned how to drive the Viper. And I'm like, yeah, because Bob wanted my number. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Well, long story short, very karmic. Such a love story. So,
see,
he's cool.
You send your daughter to the school 7 years later, here you are full circle, and then boom, we've been together ever since, I presume. We had our 11th anniversary
on May 18th, where we got married on the Formula One track in Monaco. He raced it 4 times, and he loved turn 14 because he said as he would go flying by in the Formula One cars, he'd see all the yachts out there in the water. And he said, for a minute, I wasn't focusing. I was like, I want to be on one of those boats when this race is over. And no, we got married the day of qualifying. So we hopped over the barrier, brought the minister and the podium and the witnesses, and got married right there on turn 14 in front of all those yachts.
I'm surprised you guys didn't get married on turn 14 while the cars were whizzing by, knowing what I know about you guys.
Loved that. That would have been his style, but I'm the one that kind of pulls the brakes on. You got to pull the brakes on that guy. He is something else. You don't get in 10 Hall of Fames by being your average Joe.
Well, it sounds like you're not the average person either. I mean, you can tell people that you're boring, but once we start hearing your stories, oh, I owned a TV station, I designed shuttles for NASA, I did this, I did that, people are going to sit there and go, I don't think this lady's being honest about her boring lifestyle.
Yeah, no, it's not boring. I'll never say I had a boring life. I never say that, but what happened to the school? I think it's funny because people will sink the whole ship just because it can't be captain. And that's kind of what happened. But, we pulled the ship back out of the water, and it's going to sail soon.
Well, there's brand new sails on it. There's a new mast. Everything's coming through. I'm looking forward to it. The presumed sale date is January, it looks like then.
That's when we're allowed to announce it. So we're in a settlement agreement. We had to agree that we would not tip our hand on the who, what, when, and where until January. So we're okay with that.
Okay. I'm going to make a prediction then, just because it's me. And no one listens to me, and I'm 90% wrong anyway, so it's okay. Nissan's going to be the car that brings it back.
Wow.
This is my prediction.
Wow.
Northern Arizona, more so closer to the Flagstaff area, so you get your winter while still having beautiful scenery, a la, you know, cars from Disney.
Well, look at you with a crystal ball.
Oh yeah, I know I'm 100% wrong on this, but it just sounds good.
What else you got?
What's that? And that first lap with you and Bob in the car, just to, you know, warm up the track to introduce everybody to the school.
Love it. I do dream big. So far in my life, they've all come true. So we'll see how close you are.
That's just me writing the outline. The outline never ends up looking like the final movie. You know, it always goes through 17 drafts. So this is draft one.
So you said you're a Ford versus Ferrari fan.
I am. Yeah, it was a great flick. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Christian Bale was amazing as a person.
Super nice guy.
He was a motorcycle racer, so Bob was thrilled that he didn't have to really dig in to train him. They spent hours every day, Bob telling him everything he could about how to play the part of Ken Miles. So when the movie came out, Bob goes, hold on a minute. That was not Ken Miles in that GT40 at the airport. That, my friend, was Bob Bondurant. So I said, Bob, what they do in Hollywood, they take a little bit of creative liberty and they kind of make it really, really juicy. And he goes, well, there's a whole lot of juicy put in that one. So I just love it. He's such a humble guy, but don't be messing with what he accomplished himself. But he thought the movie was great. He loves Christian. Christian stays in touch with us, which is a beautiful thing, because as busy as that guy is, for him to care enough to call Bob and check on us, that just tells you what kind of guy he is.
That's fantastic. He's been nice to me the 2 or 3 times that I've met him, so I have 0 complaints about him. Yeah. I know he's had mood swings on sets before, but when you have 15-hour days, it becomes understandable after a while. I will tell you my favorite scene from Ford versus Ferrari.
I already know what it is. Go ahead, tell me.
Which one is it? I want you to guess first.
Where he has Ford squealing like a baby.
That's actually the second.
Well, that wasn't even Christian. Yeah, that wasn't Christian driving that one.
That's actually the second scene. No, the primary scene is where I believe he's talking, not Lee Iacocca, the guy that they made the jerk in the movie, but he really wasn't that bad of a guy in real life.
Yeah.
And he's explaining to him how to redesign the Mustang, which ends up being the 66 Mustang from the original 64.5 design.
Yep, Bob was the tester for that car. Bob did all the testing for the GT40 because Ken said, that car is a death trap, I'm not getting in it. So all the testing for the GT40, honestly, should have been credited to Bob Bondurant. And then the GT350R, it was all Bob until he and Phil Remington got it all sorted out. And then Ken Miles, and he didn't like getting in it. He's like, why would I get into that when I've got Cobras, Daytona Coupes, and GT40s over here to test drive? So Bob actually he was a lot more involved than he gets a lot of credit for. And you'll never hear it from him. You know, he's just not that kind of guy. So.
Well, when you have 10 world championship records and Hall of Fames and everything else that goes along with it, I think your record speaks for yourself. You don't really need to brag at that point.
He's one of those race car drivers that didn't turn to drinking after his, holy days were over. He stayed very involved in saving lives for other people. Very humble, very appreciative, extremely respectful to everybody. It's just painful to see how this chapter of his life is really taking him down to one knee. It's like watching a king take down a knee there, but I promise you he will be. Bondurant is back.
Well, look at it this way. In the religious sense, you bow down to God and then, you get knighted and then you step back up. So that looks like
I
the
love
position
that.
you guys are going for.
I love that. I do love that.
So in January, when you can finally talk about it, we're going to revisit this because I really enjoy talking with you, Pat. And, you know, we can't go too into detail because of that, because, you know, legal purposes and all the other contracts. So we got to do a little bit of a background this go around. And then the next time we talk, we're going to get a little deeper. But a little hint that you can mention, I know you mentioned it's going to be it's not going to be a flat track. It's going to be all sorts of stuff. If we could compare it to, say, an American racetrack or a European racetrack, or even a double track, one European, one American, who could we compare it to?
Easy answer. Riverside. Riverside Raceway.
Okay. Well,
that would be, you know, I absolutely love Road America. I love Road Atlanta. Those are two of my favorite tracks. You know, Bob was at Sears Point for 20 years with the school. He owned that track at one point. There's so much history people don't know. It's just a seething mass of amazing information about Bob Bondurant. But he really liked the elevations that he had there at Sears Point. And he said, you know what, sweetheart, we're not going to do a flat desert track the next go round. We're not going to do it. And I'm like, okay. Well, lo and behold, we get invited to a meeting on Saturday, and man, these guys are like, there's one thing we don't want to see you do is go on a flat track. And we're like, wow. I mean, it is amazing how God sends you all the right people at the right time, you know, and it was tough going through what we went through. It really, really was. And it was unfair and it was unjustified and it was pure evil. But when things are turning around the way they are now, you know, Bob and I have this one thing, and we always say it. It's God has the last word. So we just keep being the good people that we try to be, and we'll see how that works out for everybody.
If this is too personal a question, you don't have to answer, but I still need to ask, since it's your biological son that did this to his stepfather who gave him his name, how much more does that hurt you as a parent in all of this? I know it hurts Bob
Good
because
question.
he gave the boy the name.
Good question.
And now, but this is your flesh and blood that's doing it, not only to you, but to the man who gave him his name.
You've never met a kinder, sweeter son than he was. He was gold. We were inseparable. It was, you know, the mother who adored her son. We were so close for all of our life. And then he married a woman who was older than him, and she had quite the background that none of us bothered to look up before they married. And she's convinced him that she's the daughter of the ancient Viking god Odin. So if that tells you how weird this went, he now worships a Viking god, and I didn't raise this child that way. So when you ask what is the mother's disappointment in this, for this guy to let her convince him that all your upbringing, you know, your mother is a nothing, your upbringing was a nothing. And, but you know, when you marry somebody and you leave your mother, she had a lot of influence on him. I think it's a very abusive situation over there that he can't get out of. Whenever he was a child, he was 9 years old when the psychiatrist at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville said, let me tell you how your son's life's going to go, Pat. He's either going to commit suicide by the time he's 18 from what his father did to him in the abuse, or he's going to marry a woman that is his father's clone. And he married a woman who was his father's clone. And so, you know, if you had told me my kid would have done that, I swear I would have stood up with swords and said, not on my watch. And he did it. And it's disappointing. But, you know, there's this mystery about us here and what our missions are and who the people really are in our lives. And as horrible as it all was, you know, sometimes you got to look at this as maybe this was meant for me to learn why I'm here. Maybe just maybe that really tested what I'm made of. And, you know, I didn't waver off of my beliefs, and I stood by Bob, and I stand by the school name. And I tell people I fought like a badger to get our name back, to protect Bob and his intellectual property. And, you know, obviously my faith has just kind of made me realize, Pat, this is how life's going to go. And it's not always sweet, but there's one thing you can never forget. How you react to it is how you're judged on Judgment Day. And boy, if that doesn't sit you up straight in your chair, nothing will. So I don't blame anybody. I don't blame the bad guys that bought the assets, that stripped our race cars, about $1 million worth of race cars stripped down to nothing. And we don't know how that happened. Our museum cars got taken across state lines, and it's been a mess. It's been a painful, very expensive mess. We've lost millions of dollars, but you know what? We're here today. We're full of gratitude, and things are going to be just fine.
Well, when the Bondurant Method 2.0 and possibly leading into 2.5 shortly thereafter takes off, I see a lot of good things coming for the school, and gives me a chance to come out and visit at some point.
I cannot wait to put you through that school. You are going to be a changed man.
Oh, I'm wearing black pants from what you're telling me. So
definitely wear black pants.
Pat, let's end this on a happier note. I know, Bob wants to get into a race car, but he still has his injury and some atrophy that we're going to build him back up. I assume, more bionic man than anything.
Yeah, he's working on it. Yeah, he's working on it.
What can you give us a little more hint that we can get a little more excited for the January announcement, and then tell us about the website to keep us updated on what we can come to go and search for updates?
Thanks for that. You can contact us at info@BondurantRacingSchool.com. We have been kind of quiet because we've been needing to get through these lawsuits right now. We're about to walk into a malpractice lawsuit against our own attorneys and the chief restructuring officer, because we were led into a dark hole that you never think it's your own lawyers that are a part of that. Well, guess what? So we're about to enter into that. So we've got a lot of focus on that, but I have 7 lanes in my brain, and only one of them is dealing with the legal stuff. We're almost out of the dark hole, but no, it's a lot of attention being spent on, if we go with this track, what would we change and what do we need that they don't have? So I'm going through a lot of that minutia right now. But if it's a new track, oh man, I want to win another National Design Awards, what I want to do. So I can tell you that info@BondurantRacingSchool.com, in the settlement agreement, we had to give up a lot of things. So that is our new .com. We'll answer everything that we can. We're starting on building a new website, so be patient. It's got some funny pictures of Bob, but just starting on that. I don't want to get a big staff like I had. I don't want to get up to 70 employees again. I want to be able to sell the license agreement, and then I want to be the one who can oversee it getting upright. Like, I'll give it one really hard year of president and CEO, what all I've learned. But then I want to be able to just sit back and watch them be successful. My whole goal is, I thought when you turn 65, you're supposed to be sitting on a beach in Maui. And I'm like, hold on a minute, change of plans. So, I want to get it knocked out. And I've got a lot of European trips that are lined up. That's going to be pretty exciting. Very exciting, as a matter of fact. It's going to take a lot of energy. But I'm just crazy happy with the excitement that people have on wanting to hear what really happened to the Bondurant School and what's the next step. So, I'm under so many NDAs right now that I couldn't even begin to tell you, but some of these are titans that we're talking to. And, God, it just feels so good. It just feels good. Bob feels good. I feel good. So, I don't know, we'll just take in, anybody's got any questions. We got taking in people who are still interested in talking to us about the Bondurant license. That could mean a multiple things. So a lot of conversations can be had there. about all I can tell you. I just can't give away any secrets right now. And that's not my strong suit. Usually I'm like, yeah, let me tell you what I know. Can't
It's
do
all
that.
right. We'll save that for January because it just gives us another chance to talk again.
I can't wait. You are so much fun.
Thank you. Pat, please stick around for a couple of minutes. I want to ask you a couple of questions off the record, not related to the Bondurant School that's under the NDAs, but here is the big question that does not have an NDA. What is the car that you take to Costco, and then what's the car that you take to church on Sunday?
Okay. You want me to answer it now?
Please.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a hauler. So, and German. So I ended up with a BMW SUV, and I'm not making this up. I do drive Bob's 1965 Daytona Coupe. It's the continuation. They did a special Bob Bondurant edition, and you do see me around town in that Daytona Coupe, number 26 on the side. It looks just like the car in the painting behind me, but it's number 26. The car behind me is when Bob won Sebring in the Daytona Coupe, and number 26 is the car he won the last race of the World Championship. So yeah, I still get out there, and I'm one of the cool kids from time to time.
I think you're one of the cool kids all the time. You know, you're putting the rest of us going, yeah, our lives are kind of boring. Sure. You know? Pat Bondurant, it has been a pleasure to chat with you. We're looking forward to more revealing things. I'm glad we got this little bit of a background interview with you, and seeing that Bob's health is improving. He's a bit more bionic than before, but
Yeah.
you know, if you show him the video where I say maybe you guys are going to take the first lap on the new track,
He'll do this. Yes, that's exactly what he'll do.
Yeah, but you're going to hold my feet to the fire literally while he's taking the lap, because you're going to be mad at me that I put it in his head.
Yeah, you will pay for that. It'll be great fun though.
Perfect, Pat. Thank you so much. Please stick around for a couple of minutes.
Thank you.